Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, Monday, September 15th. It is my brother's birthday. Happy birthday to my brother, who will most certainly not listen nor watch this. We had a big night and big day in SWFL Sunday. The Chiefs are 0-2. The Colts are 2-0. And the Bills, we might as well just give the AFC East to right now. We got a lot that I want to go through. We're going to touch on probably 4 or 5 different teams from a pretty entertaining, that 1 p.m. slot. I don't love that we overload the 1 p.m. slot with games because that leaves us stuck with a 4 p.m. slot of Eagles and Chiefs, which was great. And then our other two 4 p.m. matchups, the Colts and the Broncos, which actually turned out to be a great game. And then you've got the Cardinals and the Panthers. The Panthers nearly storm all the way back. I love when you can sit there, and we had 5 TVs. I don't have 5 TVs. I was at a location with 5 TVs. And you can just game to game. You're just going through. Because the problem with Red Zone, as much as it's entertaining, Red Zone is very difficult to get any sense of like establishment. You're not watching the game to see what happens in the same way that just having one TV on for every single possession, you could see a little bit more. Red Zone, I love it. It's a fourth corner of a quad box for me, but it cannot be the only thing we're watching. So some takeaways from week 2. Let's start in the AFC, and let's start where pretty much I think everybody else is going, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. I think there's major concern for the Chiefs, but it's not because anything to do with their offense. I think that this is a football team that is still very good. It's a football team that still has a lot of great pieces on it. They played the the Eagles really, really well. The problem is, depending on what happens on Monday night, the Chiefs are going to be down 2 or 3 games in the AFC West already. If the Chargers win, then they're going to be staring at a 2-game deficit to a Chargers team that you already lost to in Brazil. Now, you get the home game when that one comes back around in Kansas City, but that alone, just the math of it, is very difficult to see a path forward. Now, is there a path forward? You betcha. We got 15 more games, 16 more weeks. There is a long time for the Kansas City Chiefs to make it back there. But a 3-game deficit against a Los Angeles Chargers team that looked really good, that's got a really great head coach, that's got a really great starting quarterback who has a ton of offensive options, that's a dangerous situation for the Kansas City Chiefs to be in. Now, what about what's on the field? They have holes. Their wideouts are unproven. They lost Tyreek Hill and then turned around and won a Super Bowl. And every comment was, guess you don't need to pay that super great wide receiver. Well, they haven't had that great wide receiver since then. And last season, they made it to the Super Bowl, 1 win away from winning it all, and we could sit here and still have that conversation. But the whole of this team is still that they don't have a game-breaking wide receiver, which now that Travis Kelce is very clearly regressing, is becoming a bigger and bigger flaw on this team. They don't have the guy they don't have the Jamar Chase. They obviously don't have what Tyreek Hill was when he was on this field. They don't have CeeDee Lamb. They don't have, pick your favorite wide receiver that sits atop the leaderboard and can get you a catch any single time you need one. That's what they're lacking. And I think that is now that Travis Kelce is mortal and on his way out, it's and finally no longer ageless. That's really coming in to be a challenge. But if you go glass half full, this is a team that played toe-to-toe with the Eagles, a team that everybody expects and kind of sits here at head and shoulders above the rest of the NFC, and you played them close enough to be 13-10 with a chance to take the lead until Travis Kelce can't pull that ball in. This is not panic time in Kansas City, but just the math of where they sit currently is dangerous. Let's stay in the AFC and let's go to the Bills. Let's just give them the AFC. Let's just give them the AFC East. The Pats and Dolphins are not there. I mean, the fact that the Pats nearly lost to the Dolphins, I think the Pats are a 6-7 win team and the Dolphins are a 3-5. And the fact that you stooped down to that level and nearly didn't walk out of South Florida with a win, it's not great for the New England Patriots. Meanwhile, they just beat the ever-living everything out of the New York Jets. there's no one close to them in the AFC. I mean, you're going to get 6 games of your 17-game schedule against those 3 teams. I would be shocked if they do not go 6-0 in the AFC. There's just it's difficult to find the scenario where this Buffalo team loses outside of what is very common in the SWFL. We just didn't execute for 1 week and we lose games. Why nobody goes undefeated? So yes, will the Bills lose to the AFC teams? Maybe, but I'm never going to think that's going to happen because of how much better they are. And speaking of the Jets, how about the Steelers, who looked really not great against the Seattle Seahawks? I mean, woof. So much excitement in week 1. You beat the Jets. You have this great game, and both teams, and it's what I talked about last week. Week 1 is so difficult. Are you good? Did you play a good team? You win the game. My Jags, they win week 1. I cautionally very much thought, okay, let's see what happens when we play a real team, and lo and behold, what happens? Their defense was what it was. The Steelers are the same exact way, and you lose to a Jets team in a close game who goes and gets beaten by a team that everybody expects to be really good. And you lay an egg against the Seahawks in a game that Aaron Rodgers did not look good. It's tough to feel confident about them right now. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. I mean, the end of the world is getting pretty close because you're now 1-1 where the Ravens are definitely better than you and the Bengals lost their starting quarterback. I would wager maybe it's turf toe if that's what we're looking at, but probably worse than that. But they've got at least the 2-0 start to the season as the cushion. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I just don't know how we feel optimistic about this team, except for the fact that they have Mike Tomlin. And that is the only thing that would give me confidence to believe that this team has any chance of turning things around. Let's go to the other side, the NFC. I'm going to start with the Rams. The Rams were a team I loved a season ago. They were sub 500 at one point, and I said I think this team's making the playoffs. They've got a great head coach. They've got a really, really great quarterback, and they had, at the time, some offensive weapons in the running game and on the outside that you really like. Well, let's fast forward a year, and all of those things are the exact same. And they're 2-0. They've got Devontae Adams looking rejuvenated. They've got Matthew Stafford throwing for nearly 300 yards. This offense is awesome to watch. I mean, Matthew Stafford, I've sit on this show and on the Marsh Pod and said, I think Matthew Stafford is a top 5 quarterback in the league. Is he his top 5 quarterback now? Maybe not, but at the time, he certainly was, and I don't think he's far away from it, right? You've got your top guys. You've got your Lamar, your Patrick Mahomes, your Josh Allen, your Jalen Hurts. I think you got to put him in there. Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford. When he's cooking, Matthew Stafford, if he doesn't play in Detroit for the vast majority of his career, we're talking multiple Super Bowls, and we're talking a heck of a lot more respect than he already garners. And he has looked great through these first 2 weeks. Now, this house of cards right now for the Rams, though, is what does his back do? If he can stay healthy, I think the Rams have a fantastic opportunity. They've got 3 great options on the offensive side of the ball, and the combination of Nakua and Adams is as good, if not better, than what they got from Cooper Kupp and Nakua last season. Certainly better than what we saw towards the end of the season with Cooper Kupp, but I love where this offense is going. The challenge is the NFC West has 3 2-0 teams, and the 4th is 1-1. And San Francisco has just layers of offensive and defensive options with a great head coach, and they're 2-0. Last season, you had the benefit of the San Francisco 49ers really struggling throughout the season. They had the year from hell with a ton of injuries. If they can avoid those injuries, they're going to be in good shape. And they survived week 1 with no Brock Purdy, and they won it. That's dangerous. You've got the Seattle Seahawks, who, albeit sitting there at 1-1, are in a really good spot right now, just because they've got a lot of pieces. Their defense is really good. And then, of course, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, do I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be in a position where they are going to actually make a run? Maybe not. But this team is 2-0. They still got a lot of great pieces, and they're still in a really good position if we're just talking mathematics. In the same way that maybe the on-the-field product for the Kansas City Chiefs is still good, but the math isn't great for them, the Cardinals, I think, are a bit of the same. But good offensive weapons, They've got a good head coach with his head on his shoulders, and you win the games that you have to play. And they're 2-0, and you got to feel good about it. For that, that's why it's a little not concerning, let's say challenging for the Rams, even if I am extremely high on them. Let's go to the Bears next. There's going to be a lot of conversation. Ben Johnson. You just give up 52 points to the Detroit Lions. Ben Johnson, this is terrible. What a mistake. This team is still awful. Let's slow the roll, right? This team was the number one picking team a season ago for a reason. There are a lot of holes on this football team. There are a lot of room for improvements on this football team. We're combining Caleb Johnson and Ben Johnson, or Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams still has work to do. This defense still has a lot of work to do, just like they did last season. This team was bad, and it's going to take a lot to turn things around. Now, am I sitting here and saying there's a positive in all this? No, I'm not. But I'm saying, what did we realistically expect from this football team from last season? A group that had really challenging head coach, that has a couple of good weapons, but not as many, that still has holes on both offensive and defensive lines. We can bury them, but let's not bury them with force. Let's bury them with the understanding that we've got some things to figure out on this team. Now, does that mean Ben Johnson is going to end up being a great head coach? Maybe not. But let's at least give them more than 2 weeks, albeit 2 really not pleasant weeks to watch, especially this last one in the return to Detroit for the Chicago Bears, before we say this team is completely dead forever and ever. There's room to improve, for sure. But let's give them a little bit of time before we start throwing things under the rug and saying it's over with and it can never be fixed. And this was the wrong choice and Caleb Williams was the wrong choice. I think we do that. We jump to that conclusion far too much. Because as we've seen, there's quarterbacks out there that you put them in new situations. Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones this week, for these last 2 weeks, with good head coaches, with good offensive weapons, and they figure it out. Let's not jump to conclusions just yet that the Chicago Bears can't be saved in the next couple seasons. Maybe not this year, but let's at least give them a little bit of time before we start ragging on them as it's completely terrible, which I have some sneaky suspicions there's going to be plenty of people, especially if you give it 52, that want to do just that. That's our show. We're back tomorrow morning. Appreciate you tuning in here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.